I'll use the mic. So, I think, well, we'll see how this goes. First, see if you can find yourself on this chart. So this is the history of humans on planet Earth. So not very many of us. About 160,000 years ago, you get the first Homo sapiens. But then it's just thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. Not until the last 200 years do we hit that hockey stick growth curve and go from millions to billions, like almost overnight. And it's that curve that defines everything we're experiencing in the world today. So any discussion about what to do in the future needs to be cognizant of the fact that what worked in the past isn't going to work going forward. We have 7 billion additional humans with no additional planets. And it's our job to figure out how are we going to invent the technology that we need to help all of those humans not just survive but thrive, right? And every time we had a challenge in the past, how do you feed these people? How do you keep them alive? How do you eradicate the disease that's killing them off? Give them jobs, give them homes. Every time we invented new technology and brought it into the world to solve those problems. It wasn't government policy, it wasn't religion, it wasn't charity or some election. It was always new technology. That's the force multiplier that gives you the ability to solve problems at those scales. And that's why you and I exist. Did you know 400 million people died of smallpox before we invented vaccination? Right? We can build a future, and we can invent our way into the future, and we can solve those problems, but we have to try. So I work at this place, the Intellectual Ventures Laboratory. We basically just bought one of every tool in the world, hired one of every kind of scientist, put them all on the same team, and then started trying to invent for the biggest problems that we could find. And that's kind of a weird business invention. We don't make any products or anything. We just invent on about a 10-year horizon. So that means you're going to be wrong like almost all the time, guessing that far into the future. But if you're, a lone inventor in a garage with crazy hair and a DeLorean, you might get like a couple inventions a year and you're probably doomed. At our scale, we get about 500 inventions a year, and we kind of hope one of them pays for all the failures. So that's how that business works. Incidentally, one of our projects is we made this kitchen full of scientific equipment and some of the best chefs in the world and some food scientists and chemists, and we started trying to understand at a molecular level what's going on when you're cooking. And we got kind of carried away. We started cutting kitchen tools in half in our machine shop, and then trying to show chefs what's actually going on. We got it's a microwave. You've probably never seen like the resonator in a microwave before. And look, that boxy thing on the top is a waveguide. It's just a box. It's an antenna. No wonder your food doesn't cook evenly. It's just spewing microwaves everywhere randomly. Well, we could probably design a better waveguide. Anyway, someone sent us a Wolf Range, so we cut that in half. We don't do anything small. We ended up, after 5 years of this, finally publishing a 2,400-page cookbook on the science of cooking. You guys probably have seen this before. But it's science lessons for chefs. But you don't need a PhD to read it. Anyone can read this and learn what's going on. That's our cheeseburger. takes about 30 hours to prepare. You need an ultrasonic cavitator to make the fries and a tank of liquid nitrogen to make the burger patty, but it's probably the best cheeseburger you'll ever have. And then, after 50 pounds of cookbook, we hadn't gotten around to baking anything, so we spent another 4 years baking just bread. And then last year we put out this book, which is even bigger than the first one, just on baking bread. So if you have a forklift, you can get one of those and install it in your kitchen and learn a lot. So I'm probably the only guy in the world who has a kitchen like that next to a machine shop full of 3D printers. So about a decade ago, I got this crazy idea. Well, these guys are working on modernist cuisine. What if I work on postmodernist cuisine? And I started thinking, well, the 3D printer is a pretty interesting machine. What if we could adapt that to print food? So at the time, I couldn't even talk the modernist cuisine team into it. I think I'm just going to skip the slides and chat with you guys. They all thought it was crazy. Everyone thought it was crazy. Now it doesn't seem so crazy though, right? There's other companies here trying to sell you robots that make food. So think about how you eat. You go to the grocery store, you buy some stuff, fill up a cart, you drive home. In your car, you pay for the gas, you throw the stuff in the fridge that you pay for and pay to power. You eventually cook some of it, throw the packaging and the lamb bones in the dumpster out back, eat a little bit of it, put the rest in the fridge for a couple of weeks before you throw that out too. So that's how we do it. And it's awesome because we're Americans and we can do whatever we want. But we throw out about 40% of our food before we ever even eat it. Every American grocery store throws out 2,000 pounds a week of expired food. It's not even bad, it's just expired technically. And when you look at that population growth curve I showed you, and then you compound it with the fact that the rest of the world is trying to eat more like Americans, but we're terrible role models, right? We get away with it because everybody else eats the same thing every day and almost no meat. But if you're in the developing world and you get an extra $1, the first thing you buy, even before you get an iPod, is more meat and more variety in your diet, right? Supermarkets on our skyrocketing growth curve in these places because they think it's amazing that you can buy like everything you need in one store, right? We take that for granted. We're sick of going to the grocery store. We just want an app that just drops shit on our doorstep, right? So think about what it would be like if you had a machine with 3 buttons on it. What I ate yesterday, what my friends like, and I'm feeling lucky. And you push one of those buttons, and a machine like that with toner cartridges of frozen or dried and powdered food puts down a pixel of food, hydrates it with a needle, zap it with a laser to cook it, rinse and repeat for every pixel, and it prints a meal that's customized for you. It avoids your allergens and dietary restrictions, injects your pharmaceuticals, right? And it generates no local waste, right? Right now, something like about 90% of what's in your food is water. And we're shipping water all over the planet. Your food gets FedExed from South America sometimes. Like 4 million pounds of bananas come every month from South America. So think about what it would be like if we could improve on this entire process of how we feed people. And understanding that like the efficiencies to gain aren't in agriculture. Like, farmers are pretty good at getting all the food out of their land that they can. The inefficiencies in that last mile between the store and your mouth, right? So in this model, I go to a farm, and instead of growing, say, tomatoes that are genetically selected for their ability to simulate styrofoam and survive a ride in a truck to the store, we genetically select tomatoes for things like flavor and nutrition. Like, I've probably never even had a good tomato in my entire life, right? It's so juicy it would fall apart in your hand if you picked it off the vine. That's a tomato. But then I flash freeze it, powder it, stick it in a sealed toner cartridge, and have a truck deliver it to my machine. And then it prints that beautiful tomato that's optimally preserved. All the flavor, all the nutrition is in that powder. But you don't want to eat powder. It's like, we already preserve ingredients in your kitchen this way. That's what wheat is in your kitchen, right? It's dried and powdered. Nobody wants to eat powdered wheat. So what's left? Well, we got to turn it into something you want to eat. And so we put it through a complicated process. And that's what chefs and bakers are doing, right? Industrially, aroma is solved, flavor is solved, nutrition is solved. I can buy a bottle of all those things. The only missing thing? Texture. So what's happening in your kitchen, in a restaurant, what a chef is doing, they're basically managing texture, right? They have to cook stuff and whatnot so you don't die of trichinella or something, but they're managing texture. So what we need robots to do is manage texture for us. So we're at the early 80s dot matrix stage. 10 years into this, I can probably print like smoothies and Cliff Bars without you guys arguing with me. But people eat smoothies and Cliff Bars. And when you think about the things that we eat, the textures that we know and love, God did not invent them. Pasta does not grow out of the ground. French bread doesn't either. Humans invented those things and learned to like them. And they're amazing, right? So we make smoothies, we make Cliff Bars, and just like the early 80s dot matrix progression, eventually we get higher resolution, we get more colors, and in 20 years we'll be printing strawberries and French bread and steaks, right? But it's important to do these things. It's important to understand that we have a lot of romantic ideas about how to feed people, how to eat. We think of food as Thanksgiving dinner every time. You get 21 meals in a week. How many of them are like Thanksgiving dinner, where you get to sit down with all your loved ones and share an amazing meal? You don't really get to do that. Out of 21, probably at least 20 of them kind of suck in some way. They're fast, you're just getting it done. It's not fun, it's not entertainment, it's not enjoyable, it's just fuel. So let's replace those with meals made by robots, and you can have Thanksgiving dinner once a week. So, all right, I'm going to leave out the back and flee the building before any of you gets a chance to maul me for my heretical ideas. But thanks for listening. My name is Pablos. Have a good one.